Hey, it's Josh from JoshLM Finance. Look, 2025 was a wild year. And honestly, a story that caught a lot of people off guard was silver. I mean, while everyone was glued to crypto and tech, silver was just quietly putting on an absolutely monster performance. So we've got to unpack this. Let's dig into how it all went down. And really, the numbers, they just speak for themselves. Gold had a great year, no doubt about it. But silver? Silver was playing a totally different game. So you're probably wondering, just how big was that gap between them? 170%. Let that sink in for a second. That's what silver did in 2025. We're not talking about just squeaking by gold here. No. This was total domination. A run like that, it absolutely demands we ask why. And it wasn't just about the percentage gain, as insane as that was. Silver also did something huge from a psychological standpoint. It finally smashed through that $50 resistance level. Now, for anyone who's been watching this market, you know that $50 mark has been this massive ceiling. It stopped silver cold back in 1980 and did it again in 2011. But this time, it didn't just break through, it blew the doors off. So again, it all comes back to that one crucial question.
Yeah, why? Why now? What on earth changed that caused silver to just so completely trounce its big brother gold? That's the mystery we're going to solve right now.
All right, so the biggest piece of the puzzle comes down to one core difference between gold and silver. Think of it like this. Gold is like a prized collector's item. It's beautiful, it's a store of value, but it mostly just sits there, in a vault. Silver, on the other hand, well, it's a store of value for sure, but it's also an industrial workhorse. It actually gets used up. It's consumed in factories and tech labs, and that fact that it gets consumed changes the entire game.
And we're not talking about some niche industrial use here, oh no. The demand is absolutely exploding in the most critical, high-growth sectors of our entire economy. We're talking solar panels, we're talking EVs, the massive AI data centers that are popping up everywhere, the semiconductors inside, well, everything you're using to watch this. All of them are hungry for silver, and their appetite is just getting bigger and bigger.
Okay, so you've got this incredible demand story, right? But here's where it gets really interesting. That's only half of the equation, because while demand is skyrocketing, we're running headfirst into a serious, and I mean serious, supply problem. Get this, for 4 years in a row, the world has been using more silver than all the mines on the planet can pull out of the ground. That's what economists call a structural deficit. It basically means we're raiding the world's piggy bank, drawing down all the above-ground stockpiles just to keep the lights on. And you don't need to be a financial genius to know that can't go on forever. And to put a hard number on it, just look at 2024. The gap, the shortfall, was almost 150 million ounces. That is a massive number. When you have that kind of relentless demand smashing up against a supply that just can't keep up, well, something's got to give. And that something is the price. It's Econ 101. So that's the story of 2025. That's the why behind that incredible rally. But look, as investors, we can't just look in the rearview mirror, right? We've got to be looking forward. So the big question now is, what does all this mean for 2026? Well, if you look at the general sentiment out there, it is definitely bullish. A lot of analysts are staring at these exact same supply and demand numbers and coming to the same conclusion. They're not just talking about silver beating gold again, they're throwing out price targets that would have sounded crazy just a few years ago. I'm talking about some serious forecasts pointing towards $100 an ounce.
Okay, so what would it take to get there? What are the key things you should be watching? Well, it really boils down to 3 big macro factors. First, if we see interest rates start to come down. Second, if the US dollar weakens. Both of those are historically like rocket fuel for precious metals. And third, and this is the big one, the industrial demand has to keep firing on all cylinders. That means continued massive spending on green energy and all that tech infrastructure. So let's say this story makes sense to you. How can you actually get some exposure? Well, you've got a few main routes. You can go with physical silver, coins, bars, that sort of thing. That's your classic long-term store of value. If you want something easier to trade, you've got ETFs like SLV or SIVR. And then, for those of you with a higher risk tolerance, you could look at mining stocks. They're more volatile, but they offer the potential for much higher leveraged returns.
But I gotta put a big disclaimer here, folks. Let's be real. No asset, and I mean no asset, just goes up in a straight line. Silver is famously volatile, so this is absolutely not YOLO your life savings advice. This is about thinking of silver as one piece of a smart, diversified portfolio. And as always, please do your own research.
So let's wrap this up. We know what happened in 2025. It wasn't a fluke. It was driven by powerful fundamental forces, insane industrial demand colliding with a major supply crunch. That story is in the books. The real question, the one that matters to you and me right now, is what happens next? So I want to know what you think. Is $100 silver possible in 2026? Or is this rally getting overhyped? Let me know down in the comments. And hey, if you found this useful, hit that subscribe button for more clear, no-nonsense breakdowns from me here at JoshLM Finance. Thanks for tuning in.